Hi, and welcome to SOS Stories of Survivors. I'm your host, Serina Dansker, and I feel so much gratitude today because my guest is not just a guest. She is my dear friend, Anna Raimondi. She is a medium, psychic, clairvoyant, teacher, healer, and just a shining light. And we are so lucky to have her in studio because she is so busy and she is just a force. And we are going to hear about her story, how she's become a renowned author and clairvoyant and has really inspired so many people, myself included. Thank you so much for joining us today and welcome, Anna.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I can't wait to talk about how you bring your energy and love of life to so many. Why don't you talk a little bit about you and who you are and what you've gone through?
Well, I'm a mother, a wife. I have children. I first learned of my gifts when I was about 12, when I realized that everybody else didn't have them. I'm a born medium. I have gone through the ups and downs of life, and I bring things forward to people so that they can recognize that there is a heaven, there is an afterlife, there is a God, whether you call it Sam, the energy of love, the power in the sky, whatever you want to call it. But it's real and it's true. And my mission is to bring that to people, to help them heal, to help them find peace, and to help them find joy.
That is amazing. I know that you too have felt the pain of grief, and you know what it's like to have loss in your life. Um, where did you lean? Was it prayer, spirit, friends, or just moments of
You know,
silence?
I always go, I always go to the source. When I'm in pain or I'm suffering from something, I go to God. I go to Mary. I go to what fills my soul and what can heal me and who can heal me. You know,
Mm,
friends are wonderful, but they're not as understanding as, the one is. And so
yeah.
that's where I've always gone.
That's beautiful. I know that you were such a big part of my healing journey as well. I mean, before I've gotten to know you personally, I reached out to you and everything that you stand for, the gifts that you have, the comfort you brought me, and not just me, so many people. Can you talk a little bit about the first time you realized that the connection you have to spirit was more than just a feeling, that it was a calling?
That's interesting because I'm a born medium. I wasn't trained to do what I do or see what I see. This has been my entire life, with the middle part of it disregarding it because it didn't allow me to quote unquote fit in high school. And so I really realized it was a calling when I was invited to do a group session by a friend of mine with people I didn't know. And I
Hmm.
had never done that before. And
Wow.
I went there and I really felt that God was moving me toward this. And afterwards, when people were saying, you helped me so much, I can't begin to tell you, that was the turn. So I thought, okay, everything I did up until this time brought me to this place, but this is what I need to do.
Gosh, that's so amazing. Now, when did you first realize that you had this special gift? I know you have a close relationship with Mary. Can you talk about that?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't know I had this special gift until I realized that other people didn't have it. Because in my mind, as a kid, everybody had this. Everybody could do this. I didn't understand why adults would ask me to sit with them and talk to them. It was like, ask your child kind of to do that. Mary was a whole different thing. I remember it very vividly. I grew up on Long Island, and it was like a kind of the day it was like today, kind of dreary, but I don't know. It was chilly. Maybe it was fall or beginning of spring. I don't know. And my parents had in their backyard what sometimes people call Mary on the half shell. So it's Mary in this dome, except that there was no Mary, and I was tiny, and I was about 4 or 5, and I sat in the dome, and I was just sitting in the dome, and then I saw this young girl with, long kind of auburn hair, dressed in, this brown outfit with a belt and darkish skin, big eyes, and she said to me, "I will always be with you." Didn't understand what that meant. I went in the house, my mother was smoking and reading the newspaper. And, I guess that's what you did back then. And I
Right.
went in and I said, "I just saw Mary in the backyard." And she looked at me like, oh, like trying to think, like, do we have a neighbor named Mary? And she just said, "Oh, that's nice." Because they were so used to me saying that I was seeing people. And so, I carried that with me. It was but Mary belonged to me. I didn't tell anybody about this. I didn't talk about this. And she continued to come to me, I mean, until now, she still comes to me. She continued to come to me. And whenever I was in crisis, it was
Yeah.
always Mary.
What has Mary taught you personally about this?
She's taught me faith that if you ask, you may not receive immediately, but you will receive, to pray, to always pray, to always lift it up to God, to surrender. I've spent so many days and nights when I've been in a bad situation, just surrendering it up to God with Mary's help. She taught me, what it means to be a mother, what it means to, have the joys and the pain of motherhood. So, I feel like, you have your parents, and then I have this mentor that is absolutely wonderful, trying to keep me on my path. That doesn't mean I don't go off my path or make mistakes. I'm human, of course I do, but she's always there. And I know it. Pure trust.
That's so, and it gives me hope when I hear you talk about that relationship and the relationship you have with Mary and what Mary has taught you, because without that hope, you have nothing, right?
Well, that's how it goes. Without hope, life is like a broken winged bird. Yeah.
Mm,
And Mary does provide hope. There's always hope. We're going through such chaos now in the world. And when
yeah,
people say to me, "Is this the end?" And I just keep saying, "No, hang on, have some faith, hope. We've been through
yeah.
this before. The world has been through this before." It's about, in the book, Mary says over and over again, pray, pray, pray. Things can change.
Yeah, I believe in that. I so believe that. And as your friend, Anna, I know how much you give of yourself. How do you balance holding space for so many others while also protecting yourself and your soul and your spirit?
Well, I think my protection just comes from God. And I'm a normal person. So, I spend time with family, I travel, I go out with my friends. It's my relaxation. I have to learn, I have to relax. I meditate. I go to that place that feeds me, feeds my soul in whatever way. But I have to release the things that I feel and hear during the day, or I would have no life.
How do you release that?
Through meditation, through prayer. I play video games on my iPad. It sounds ridiculous, but it's mindless, okay? And I just do it. I just do what I have to do. I spend time with people. I laugh. Laughter is great.
Yeah.
So I try to do as much as I can to bring myself into that balance.
Mm. I mean, we've talked about how healing doesn't happen when you're alone so much as it happens when you're surrounded by your community, your friends, love. Um, how does that connection play a role in your own story and on how you live your life?
Well, love is the end all. Love is God.
Mhm.
Love is the greatest energy in the entire world. That's what it's all about. And the more you surround yourself with loving people, people that make you laugh, people that raise your vibration,
Mm.
people that you want to be with. I tell people all the time, they'll complain about people. It's like, well, then why are you with that person? If that
Right.
person is bringing you down or you don't feel good about yourself when you're with that person, then you shouldn't be with that person. Community is wonderful. No matter what you're doing, like spiritual community, and again, it doesn't mean you're walking around preaching all the time or doing
Right.
anything like that. It's just uplifting. Being on the
Mm.
same page with people also helps. Somebody came to me today and she's like, I'm at a spiritual crisis because I don't know anybody who's spiritual, and meanwhile, there's spiritual people everywhere,
Yeah.
so it's when you know you're surrounded by them and that they have your back and you have their back and it's love and compassion, that's what it's about.
I tell you, I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about how nice it is to have friends that you can talk to when you're going through things, when you're going through grief or a hard time. But what's really nice is when you're celebrating something, something you've worked so hard for and joyful, and you can share that too without feeling like they're going to be envious or jealous, that
Right.
they're just joyful with you. I think that's like the best,
Yeah,
you
it
know?
is. It is. And I love that. I've had a lot of joy in my life. Everybody has the ups and the downs, but I've had a lot of joy. And some of it, was, oh my God, if I tell this person, will they think I'm bragging? You know?
Right.
And it's just,
Exactly.
I remember like the first time I was on the Dr. Oz show, I was so excited, and my friends were just as excited for me. And
Yes.
that was pretty wonderful. So, yeah, it's those things. Like that's not a big thing. It's not like having a baby,
Right.
but it's something that, is a
But
part of
it's
my life that I won't forget.
exactly. And when you have a friend like that, you're joyful for their successes.
Hmm.
Their successes are your
That's right.
successes,
But
you
that's
know?
love.
Yeah.
That's what love does.
It's so I know you lead retreats and gatherings and you host so many virtually in-person restaurants in different parts of the country, actually in different parts of the world. What do you most hope that people walk away from these types of retreats and gatherings in their heart?
I want to help people feel the connection and feel the peace that, either comes from above, or actually it's in front of you because it's right in front of you, it's another dimension, or from within themselves, from their
Mm.
souls. The soul is so wonderful, and the soul is good. That's the good part of us. It's our energy. It's what we're about. That people can get in touch with that and then be
Mm.
able to take that and live happy lives. Or when they're not happy, know where to go with it.
Yeah, yeah.
And to
I've
believe that there's something greater than themselves. We sit so much in ego. You know,
yes.
it's important that people know it's at the end, who cares about your ego? There's
Mhm.
something so much greater that holds us all up, and we're never alone. Whether it's by our relatives or by, the angels or God or whatever, we're never, ever, ever alone.
Mm. I was reading a book recently and it talked about living in the present, and how we so worry so much about the future and we have anxiety of everything in the future, but that's not guaranteed. The present we lose sight of. You get somewhere, you're on vacation, you're like, oh, 3 days till I leave. But
I
by
know.
doing that, you're not enjoying the time that you're there. Or you let your past, which is done, it has no bearing on today, creep in and ruin your good time, or ruin your state of mind that's really right now.
Well, you know what I hear over and over again from those who have crossed over is life is too short.
Hmm.
Live every moment. Every moment, because it just goes, and I hear that from people who have passed in their 90s and people who have passed, at 17. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter. It goes so fast and the moments fly through. So live those moments, really live. And you know what? Your idea of living those moments might be different than my idea of living those moments. It's an individual choice and an individual feeling of what it feels like to be in the moment and live the moment. So, yeah, it's
I,
important. It's the
I
power of now, you know?
exactly, the power of now. Yes, it's such it's hard, such a hard concept to grasp too. I do struggle with it, but I'm doing my best to actually embrace now and not focus so much on the future.
Mhm.
I think it's important. I want to enjoy my life today and all the beauty and start each day grateful and just full of gratitude for everything that I have, my health and my friends and
Yeah,
all, you
being
know.
grateful, I think people forget about is waking up in the morning and saying, "I'm alive. Thank you."
Exactly, exactly. And and I know sometimes our listeners is or could be sitting alone right now in grief and wishing, for a sign from their loved ones, or just so heartbroken that they feel like they can't go on. What's a practice or a prayer you would say you should try doing this tonight to help you through this?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm also a grief counselor. I felt that I had to understand grief in order to do what I do. So, when people are grieving, and grief is important, people should grieve and get out the tears, get out the feelings. But at the end of the day, those on the other side, they want us to go on and to be happy and to continue our lives. They don't want our lives stopped. They want it to continue, to breathe through it, to meditate, to say any prayer. Prayer doesn't have to be a prayer of a religion, it's a conversation. Have a conversation with your loved ones, write them letters, have a conversation with Mary, have a conversation with God. Do what feels right in your soul,
Mhm.
but have the conversations because that helps. And the signs are everywhere. Keep in mind, we're made of energy. And so, those on the other side will blink lights, turn on radios, turn on TVs, turn off radios. They love sending birds, things like that. They superimpose themselves on people. So from the back, it looks like them. And then when they turn around, you realize it's not them. All those things are meant to bring us peace. So they're sending us peace from the other side as well.
Wow. I totally look for signs all the time, and I'm never let down. I see signs in the clouds and on the truck that goes by, on
Hmm.
the rainbows, on the sunsets. I'm always open. My husband thinks I'm absolutely crazy, but he sees it too.
Hmm.
You know,
Right,
he really does. And it's nice. It's just that little God wink, and
right,
it
exactly.
fills my heart. It really does. Um, let's talk a little bit about your books. I mean, you've written two books, and I know they've reached so many people. You've written Conversations with Mary, and you've written in Suburbia,
Talking to the dead in suburbia.
Talking to the Dead in
Yeah.
Suburbia.
So I
Thank
wrote
you.
that a long time ago. I'm actually hoping to rewrite it, make it
Ooh.
more, because I wrote it when I had little kids, and my life was very different. I don't have little kids anymore. And so, it was from a different perspective. And then Conversations with Mary, that's really my baby. That book came out of nowhere, was published by, Simon and Schuster. I had a deal in a month and a half because Mary wanted it. I had gone
Wow.
to Medjugorje, where Mary has been appearing for maybe 40 years, and I went with a bunch of people, and they were my friends, and they got healings, and I came home, and I was sitting in my back in Connecticut, and I was like, Mary, I don't get it. I had to travel 13 hours when I can hear you here. And truly, I heard her say very loud and clear, you will be my platform. And I'm like, like I said, I'm in surrender. It's like, okay, bring it on. And I was doing a reading a couple of weeks later, and the woman sitting across from me said, I'm a little intuitive, and I think you should write a book about Mary. And I said, from your mouth to God's ears. And she smiled and said, I'm from Simon and Schuster. So Mary made it happen. Miracles
Wow.
happen. I've had so many miracles in my life, so many. I can't even begin to count them. And that was a miracle. I didn't know what the book was going to be about. I had no idea. I had to put together a proposal. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have an agent. I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. And then the book started to form. And a lot of it was Mary waking me up in the middle of the night, and I had to come downstairs, get out my laptop, and start typing what she was telling me. And then the next day, put a question to it. And what was so interesting is, when you're writing a book, especially with a big publisher, there are many editors. But my personal editor, who everything went to first, would say, this is incredible because Mary's, answers are grammatically correct. They flow in a great way, and the questions, not so much. Yeah,
That's
the
so
hardest
funny.
part about writing that book, truly, was the introduction, because I wrote the introduction. She wrote the rest of the book. Mary wrote that book. I didn't write it.
That's incredible that the power that they can give
Mhm.
you to go through here and out and have you write that. I find that incredible. Actually, I found you because one of my friends gave me your book when my son passed, and I couldn't really focus. My mind, I think you go through like an ADD thing when you're grieving, but I listened to your book. And I felt like I was listening to a fellow friend because of your New York accent. And yes, you have a New York
I do
accent.
not
And
have an accent.
when you did the book, you did. And I would listen to it. And then you would do these cool meditations at the ends of every chapter. And it was amazing because I could close my eyes and I can follow you. I could be walking the dog and just listening to you. And it was really healing. I have to tell you, it was by far one of my favorite books.
Well, I've
Uh,
gotten a lot of very positive feedback, and like a lot of really nice stories. One of my clients, an older woman, was dying, and her daughter was there, and my book was on her bedside table, and apparently it was all dog-eared. She had read it, and she had her daughter read it to her as she was dying. And I know this because then the daughter got in contact with me and says, I got to meet you. You know, um, my mother died listening to your book. And it was just,
wow.
wow, that's so nice.
That's incredible. It's funny because some people can understand how many lives they've saved by just, by recording doctors and how they've helped people. But what you do, you can't monetize or put a number on how many lives and how many souls you've helped. But I just wonder, how maybe when we go over the other side, the balloons will go up and be like, Anna, you've done.
That would be nice. I like a good party.
You've saved all of us, and I think it's just beautiful. But, I know you save other people, but was there a time when Mary's words, when you were being channeled to write them, actually you realized, you know what? I needed to hear this as well. Were there times that happened?
While writing the book, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was important when I was writing the book to realize Mary was a woman. She
Mm-hmm.
was a woman. She had a family. She had a child. She had a child who she really couldn't stop from doing what he wanted to do. And I think that speaks to all of us who have children, that she let go. She had to let go and move on. And then her incredible faith, but her pain. Mary felt pain. Mary was a human being and she
Yeah.
felt pain. So I think it was beyond the mystical Mary. And Mary really became a person to me and someone that I could relate to. So my relationship with her changed a bit. It became more mother to mother as opposed to mentor to child. And
Mm.
that was really eye-opening to me. And, the messages that, the things she said in the book, like made me think like, wow, I mean, there's so much she talks about. She talks about religion. She talks about the angels. She talks about the world. She talks about evil and good, where the yin and the yang of the darkness and the light. You know, I just sat there. When I read the words back, I was like, wow, I actually typed this because I didn't even realize what I was typing until I read it back.
Wow, that's so powerful. And you think about that, the ability to actually not be aware of what you're typing until you read it back. I
Right.
mean,
And it's what's
it's
important to know also is that Mary doesn't belong to the Catholic club. Mary
mm,
is for everybody. She was a Jewish woman, okay? And she comes through for everyone. When I asked her about what's the best religion, and she said, best, it's whatever religion has love, that will bring you
mm,
to God. There's many paths to get there. So she's not, this book is, the book was totally non-denominational. She
yeah,
comes through to different people because of their audience. So she might come through, to the people in Medjugorje because it's a very big Catholic audience and it's the same message, but more specified for them. Through me, the people that have read this book have been all different religions, all different walks of life, and that's what she wanted. She wanted to
mm.
open it up. She's a messenger of God to help us heal, heal the world and heal ourselves.
Wow. That's incredible. You've taught me so much through I've gone to several of your retreats and I've just learned all about Mary Magdalene and Mary and it's just it's incredible. It's opened up my spirituality, quite frankly, and have sent me on a path where I keep absorbing more and more and more, and I've become, I guess, a much different person today than I was before I lost my son. And not that I was a bad person before, I'm so much more, I think now, if that makes sense to
No,
you.
of course it does.
And I have you to thank.
Oh.
What does hope look like to you?
Hope is never giving up, always believing that there's something good ahead and not and just to keep on going without saying it's over, I can't do that. It's yes, I can. There's always yes, I can. When I was a little girl, I was taking swimming lessons and I remember saying to the instructor who was a teenager, I can't. And she said, you will never say that. You will always say, I can, I can, I can. And to me, that's hope. It will
Mm.
be. It will be better. Everything will be better. We just have to keep on keeping on.
I know, but sometimes, it can be so overwhelming
Yeah,
with
it
the
can.
state of everything. How do you just keep that light, that little spark going?
You just keep on praying and
Yeah.
feeling and connecting with people.
Mm.
We're here to help ourselves and to help heal other people. That's what we're here to do. And the more connection you have with people, and the more you show your light, and then you absorb their light, it floats you.
That's incredible. Really. I I find that having that hope and that inner light and shining that light, it actually it makes such a difference in your life.
Mhm.
Um, I find that today I will, if I see someone and I like their hair or their shirt or their glasses, I tell them, and the smile that comes back because you don't know what other people are going through,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And it's all of a sudden, and now I see that people respond the same way to me, and I'll be walking and somebody will be like, "I like your nails," and I'd be like, "Oh, thank you."
It brightens your day. I saw something when I was in California. It's this little book and it has sayings in it, like happy things, like you are beautiful, or I don't know, quotes from something. And I go around and put them on people's windshields. Okay.
I love that. Oh
And they
my
probably get
God.
in their car saying, oh God, another advertisement. And it's like something that says, slow down. Life is too short, you know? So just, I don't know, you got to do what you have to do to, I don't know, to make other people happy. The happier you can make somebody else, the happier you'll be. Because again, this is what we're here for.
Yeah. Yes. I think it's so crazy. Can you maybe talk a little bit about um any of the strangest interactions you've had with the other side?
Oh yeah, my favorite story, which I tell at nauseam, but I love this story. Um, so it was a little after Thanksgiving, and I pulled my car into my garage, and I saw a young man, very nice looking young man. He had on black jeans and a white top. He had dark hair, and he's just standing in the garage. So I'm like, okay. So, I mean, I knew he wasn't living.
Okay.
And so, at least not in this realm. And so I came in the house, and I say to my husband and my son, oh, there's this guy in the garage, and they look at each other like, she's crazy. And as time went on, he kept appearing, and he didn't talk to me, okay? And then Christmas comes and goes, and at that time had my Christmas stuff in my attic, and the attic door is in my bedroom. There is no wind tunnel in my bedroom, and I'm bringing stuff into the attic, and the door closes. And so I think, oh, that's odd. So I go back, I get more stuff, I bring it up, and the door closes. So now I'm a little like, okay, I don't like this. So I come downstairs, and my younger son and my husband were playing video games. And I said, that's not funny. You shouldn't be closing the door. And they looked at me like, we're playing games. We're not upstairs. So, okay, I go back upstairs. I bring some more stuff. The door closes. I go back. I knew it's this guy. And I'm like, okay, we're done. Okay, this is my sandbox you're playing in, and you're not allowed to scare me. And if you're
Right.
not going to communicate with me, I can't help you. And he told me his name, and he told me that his girlfriend, he gave a message to his girlfriend, and he said that she was pregnant, and that the baby was a boy and was gonna look just like him, and that she had a locket, and in the locket was his hair. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't carry my
No.
husband's hair around with me, and he doesn't
No.
have any hair. But I don't. But if he did, I still wouldn't do that. Um, and so I'm like, all right, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. So I was getting my hair cut. Now it's like after New Year's. And I'm telling the woman who cut my hair this story, and she's like, oh my God, that's my friend. He died, right after Thanksgiving on 95. He had a car accident, and his girlfriend is pregnant, and I'm actually going to the memorial next week. So I said, okay, well, you're going to have to go over to her because you have a message, okay, that you have to give her. And the first thing, you have to ask her if she has a locket with hair in it. And if she says yes, and it's his hair, then you can give her the message. And this woman was like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, you have to do this. So she goes to the memorial. She goes over to this pregnant young woman, and she said, do you wear a locket on your neck with, Mark's hair in it? And she's like, yeah. And she said, well, I have something funky to tell you. Do you believe like in the afterlife? And she said, yeah. She said, well, Mark wants the baby baptized. And she started to laugh and she said, I don't think so. I'm Jewish. So he's nagging me from the grave. Yeah. So I thought that was such a great story.
That's
And that
incredible.
woman, the young woman, the pregnant one, actually became a healer.
She did.
This was so earth-shattering and so specific that, like, she became a healer. I don't think the baby was baptized.
I don't think so. Do you think we all have that ability to connect?
I think we do. I think what prevents people from connecting is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of how will this change my life? Just like people are afraid to surrender to God's will, because what if they don't like God's will? Like, what if I don't want that and God wants that? It's the same thing with intuition. Maybe, I will feel things, or maybe if I connect and I can see other people, I'll be bringing in something bad as well. So it's that, and it's, lack of confidence, that I can't do it. To me, it's as easy as breathing, because I never had the fear because I was born like this.
Right.
I have taught intuition workshops, and there have been amazing things that have come out of them with people who could absolutely connect. And then there's the other people that say, I can't do this. And that's, yeah, you can. You can do this. Stop putting out to the universe that you can't, because you can.
Wow. I just imagine if everybody just believed enough in themselves and their abilities, what a different world it would be, huh?
Right.
Oh my gosh. I sometimes I remember I think about the connection we have to our animals as well, not just human spirits, but I had an experience with my childhood dog. He had passed away, and I don't know, it was like 10 years later, and I was sitting in my car and I smelled him. And it's so bizarre because, you're like, you smell your dog, but your dog has a specific smell. And for whatever reason, I was just like, chestnut? And I was just like, so is that something you've experienced?
Oh my God. So I bring that to other people, but my my dog passed 3 years ago on December 26th, and this was my dog. Okay, I love this dog. This dog loved me, and the dog, he passed in my arms, and it was devastating for me and my husband. We cried. It was like, I think I cried more for that dog than I did for anybody I ever knew. It was because they're so innocent. Okay. And, I kept saying, I don't understand. I can pick up other people's animals. Why can't I feel Martini? Why can't I feel him? So this was like 3 or 4 months later, and my husband and I are in bed, and we're just at that point, like we're falling asleep, and I feel the dog. My dog slept with us. And
Oh,
so I felt the dog walking in between us. And then when he didn't like my husband near me, and when he got to the top of the bed, he would go, I heard that. And my husband said, Anna, I hear it. Is that Martini?
oh my
So it
God.
wasn't just me, it was my husband. And after that, I felt okay. And I realized, because no medium has ever been able to read me, but I realized kind of what, people get from their readings with me. I knew the dog was okay. I
Yeah.
knew he was around. I knew it. And it made me feel so much better. And, that was it. The crying stopped. We were okay.
It's funny how that just no, I mean, you know that they're not okay because they're not here, but that they're okay where they are. It's
But they
such a
are okay. They
yeah.
are okay because the
Mhm.
truth is I mean, and it's cliche. Oh, they're in a better place. But the
Yeah.
truth of the matter is, it's the truth. Heaven is a place that is filled with love and peace, and there's no anger. There's no, problems with self-esteem. There's no competition. There's no judgment. There's none of that. Every day we live, we are closer to death. We live to die. I mean, it sounds fatalistic, you know,
Yeah.
but that's the icing on the cake, is dying. So they really are okay. They're okay. And they're able, somebody asked me, do our relatives miss us? No,
Yeah.
because they're around us all the time. We miss
Mm.
them because we're part of this whole human condition, the human race that can't think beyond the ego and what we know and what we can conceptualize. But they're around us all the time. It's us who miss them.
It's incredible. Like sometimes I'll get texts or emails on my social pages and people say, I understand suicide. I didn't ask to be born. I don't, I didn't want to be here. But I think the teachings that Mary has taught us are different, right? We do want to come back here from the
Yes,
other
we do.
side. Can
We
you
have
talk
it.
about that?
We always have choices, whether they're choices as we're living, choices when we pass. We can decide to reincarnate and come back here. And these people who say I didn't ask to be born, that's not true, because
Hmm.
every soul chooses its parents from the lessons that they need to learn in this lifetime. So
Hmm.
that's not true. When people say that, that's not true.
It's not true, right?
Not
It's,
true.
I feel bad that that's how they feel and they're going through a hard time. But I'm like, as far as I know, we all make that decision to
Hmm.
try and raise our vibration
That's
by
right.
coming here,
To be
right?
a better person so that we can, I mean, we're never going to be perfect, but the soul wants to love
Mm.
at a higher level. And
Yeah.
so the soul comes back here to try it. I mean, there's a choice, but to try.
Right, right. I tease, sometimes I say, sometimes life is so hard. I must really have been an overachiever when I wanted to come back here and have all of those things that could go wrong, and so I could be that much closer to God. But
Who knows?
yeah.
It's so interesting because there's so much I see and so many questions I still have.
Mhm. I know. Well, I was talking to a friend of mine who was just so broken up because their loved one passed away and not in their normal form. It was just terrible what had happened. And they felt like, grieving even more because they felt like their mother would have just been just more distraught on the other side because they didn't look like themselves.
Oh, please. When we pass, we don't, I mean, that's what it's, yeah,
Talk about this. Yeah.
our body doesn't go,
Okay.
our soul goes. And we don't, when they come through to me, yeah, I can see what they looked like when they were walking on this earth sometimes. But that's not what they look like, their energy. And you will
Mm.
know them by their energy. Okay. You don't have to have, this is skin and bones, it's the soul that
Mm.
we see. Someone in my family, we go back and forth with cremation or being buried, and
Yeah.
somebody said, no, 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 I may need that body. Like, what? You know what? I want a brand new one.
Me too. Me too. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So the
Yeah,
mother would not be upset, because the
good.
mother is totally in soul.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that if you're coming through like to a medium like you, I would come through as my best self, so that
They
way.
typically do.
Right.
They typically will come through, they have the same personalities, and they typically will come through at a time in their life that they were happy. Okay,
Mm.
so somebody could die at 85 and come through to me at 14, you know,
Wow.
but it does stop. So if somebody dies at 12, they're never older than 12. So they can only go
Yeah,
backward.
I was going to ask you about
No, they
that.
can't show me themselves at 80 because they didn't make it to 80.
Interesting. Wow. That's incredible. Um, well, I gotta tell you, Anna, I learn so much from you every time I speak with you. And it's your story, your connections to Mary, the gifts you have for holding space for so many people and teaching all of us about hope and spirit and the other side. I feel the love, and I can't thank you enough for that. I usually end every one of my shows with a poem from Scotty that I just like to share, and I try and tie it into the interview, but I'm just winging it on this one. And I'm calling it Background is the name of the poem because I figured maybe the spirits world is always around us in the background, but the poem has nothing to do with spirit. But anyway, I feel like the background to everyone's story. I lead them to success and glory, while I get left behind in a quarry. Most of my poems are allegories, but this one is just exemplatory. I'm trying to show that even though many people know my name, I still feel like I'm behind a frame. It's like a board game, and my piece never gets played. I just sit there and watch as time goes tick tock, making my life become a writer's block. I am the utopia which makes my life existence a photocopy.
That's so beautiful.
He's so funny. He just, he's got a way with words. I think he was trying to write rap music and rap songs on some of the
Well,
poems,
I can
but
see that. Yeah.
but it does make me think too sometimes, on the other side that, we do focus on, our current life, and sometimes some of those family members, especially the grandmothers and the grandfathers, that they do sit behind a frame on the mantle and we don't always pay attention.
No, that's why they sometimes come through saying, like, nobody's talking about me. And I'll
Yeah.
hear, oh, the picture is up somewhere, you know, but nobody's talking about them. They want to be spoken about. They want to be.
Mhm.
That's what keeps them around you. It's what keeps like their energy vibrant.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. And you are such a shining light. And I
Oh, thank you.
keep shining your light on all of us,
Oh,
Santa.
thank
We need
you.
you. We
Thank
need
you.
your words of wisdom, your light, your love. And if people want to reach you and go to one of your mini retreats, or maybe schedule a reading with you, how do they get in touch with you?
They can go to my website at annaraimondi.com, or I'm more on Facebook than Instagram. They can go to Anna Raimondi on Facebook, sign up for my mailing list, and you'll get stuff sent to you when I'm doing stuff. I have a couple of retreats that are in my head right now that are going to happen next year. I have a few group readings coming up. I kind of do a lot by the holidays. Some of them are on Zoom, some of them are at a restaurant in Norwalk, so they could check that out. I think it's all on my website.
Well, thank you again, Anna. And I am so grateful to call you my friend and sending you big, big love. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us. And to
Love
our
you.
listeners, I love you. Mwah. To our listeners, I love you too. And thank you for joining us today on SOS Stories of Survivors, where survival sparks the soul. I'll see you next week.